I'm Eric.
And I'm Steve.
More brawling over Brawl.
Dominaria spoilers.
Let's talk about it. Welcome, Planeswalkers, to the CollectorMania YouTube channel. Of course, I'm Eric, and joined by Steve. This is episode 25 of Let's Talk About It. As normal, of course, if you like us, give us a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and visit our Patreon in the link below. Let's break into it. What do you think?
Yeah, really.
So
our first topic, more brawling over Brawl.
Yes.
We've put up 2 Brawl deck texts so far, and I've seen a ton online. You know, a lot of people are doing this. But I've also seen a lot of hate online for it, which is something that I just don't understand still. Like, it makes zero sense to me. Why would you be mad about a new format that is essentially allowing us to play more Magic?
Right.
So it's just an interesting, like, culture thing that I'm finding. I don't know if you've seen a lot of it, too.
I've seen a little bit, through the comments and, just browsing around and kind of gauging people's feelings, even at the store. Like, there's... I don't know. It's hard to describe. Like,
the funny thing I'm finding is that more standard players are excited about this than commander players.
And that's what I've seen.
Yeah, like standard players are all just like, okay, let's give this a shot. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's kind of funny because they usually, like, a lot of people associate that group with not being open to something like this, whereas like commander peoples would be
More
generally seen as like open to this.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's an interesting flip.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. I think the number one thing that I don't think is being recognized, like, there's, sure, immediately on face value, like we were talking about this last week, there's a lot of overt kind of like hostility towards this idea for a number of reasons. It's buying packs, which commander players don't necessarily like. It's like a smaller format. It's almost the same thing. Whatever, like there are a number of reasons to dislike it, but I think the thing that people, and it may be just the type that we hear from. Imagine somebody who's new to anything Magic, and they say, "My friends play Commander. You're in the middle of a drought as far as Commander product. We got to wait until August or something like that." And then all of a sudden you can say, "Hey, build a Brawl deck."
Well, and like, with my experience of building these decks, it's super easy and it's super attainable for pretty much anybody. Because that's the thing people don't realize is that, yeah, Standard has some really expensive cards in it, but yeah, Standard has some really, really cheap cards for Commanders, especially. Because what you don't realize is that a lot of Commander staples don't make it in Standard, so they're not going to be played. So they're going to be the $2 rare compared to like the $10 whatever, so on and so forth.
The chase card for a Standard deck.
Yeah. And putting together one of these decks, like, I almost think it's a plus that we're limited on so many dual lands. Like, if you do blue-white, which is probably one of the best combinations right now because it's an allied color pair, and you've got, like, the cycle dual land, you've got the Glacial Fortress, you've got, maybe even a tap land in there somewhere. Like, that's it. Like, you don't have to think about, 20 dual lands,
No.
So on and so forth. So that, again, makes it more accessible to people that are just starting out in the format. And the thing that I just continue to not understand with this is that, yeah, that Brawl deck's going to rotate, but as soon as that Brawl deck rotates, you just add a certain amount of cards and turn it into a regular commander deck. What have you lost?
Right.
You've only gained at that point.
Yeah, like, and that's what I mean. I think we're not hearing from the people that could find this useful. We're hearing from the people that are indifferent or are against it or whatever. I think not that Commander does have a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
But they're doing a good thing with their yearly release. The card pool, I think, like you said, you can build a Commander deck for $20.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you might have to spend some time or hunt some cards or place a big online order or something like that, but like, it can be done. And the fact that now, like you said, 60 cards, what is that, 22 land, and like...
Yeah, it's like, I range from, like, in the deck tests that I've done so far, I go from like 22 to about 25, depending on like
the colors and stuff.
What you're trying to hit, essentially. Because that is one thing that I will say is vastly different, is the mana ramp isn't necessarily there unless you're playing green. So, and that's just going to be a thing that we're going to have to get over.
And you mentioned rock mana as well.
Yeah, like rock mana, like there's a few, but they're really, in my opinion, most of the time not worth even bothering with. Like I would rather just have a creature in the place of that slot. What I think we need to realize is it's going to be possibly a little bit faster of a format, and it's going to depend more on your curve than it is like more ramp. So it's going to be a little bit lower to the ground. It's not going to be necessarily like 1v1. We're not going to be shooting for like everything under 5 or 6. But at the same token, like, you're not going to necessarily get to like 12 mana like you do in other formats. Because, I mean, if you think about it, that's a huge chunk of your deck.
Even in multiplayer, you think?
I mean, it's possible, but I don't see it going that long. I think they're going to be a little bit faster. We'll see, though. I mean, I've yet to play a Brawl game, obviously. Like, I'm excited to try it out, but in the deck techs that I've done so far and what I've seen people doing as far as, like, other deck techs, like, it just doesn't seem to be the same animal exactly. It's pretty close, like, pretty comparable, but you've got to remember you can't draw on that 25 plus years to find your 10 mana rocks that are, you know, you don't have signets, you don't have blah.
Yeah.
And even when you get into like a cycle that does have signets, you might only have the signet, which is great. I would include a signet in any of these decks. That's an amazing piece. But do you really want to like waste the space on Manalith when you could be running something like, I don't know, Cruel Brutality or something? You know, I think that's the wrong name for that card, but that's my point. It's just like, why would you not include, you know, Nazahal and include a mana rock?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense because the format's going to be a lot slower.
Yeah.
Or quicker, I mean, sorry. I'm going backwards.
That's definitely an interesting thing about it, too. And I think one other thing, like, I honestly forget about, like, I see Dominaria. I think Legendary's like crazy. And then you think there's a lot of good Planeswalkers. And later in the episode, you'll see, like, they've swelled the two like Planeswalker intro deck Planeswalkers and stuff. Those will be good choices. I think there's good choices all around. And like you said about affordability, like, you know, if you wanted to build a Saheeli Rai deck, she's like $5. Like, I think Jace Cunning Castaway is around there as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a great opportunity to try something out different that way too, because, you know, we've never necessarily been allowed to play with Planeswalkers as commanders except for the 5 that got released that way. So
and
I mean,
then the flip ones, which kind of don't count, I'd say, but they shine just
they're
like
there,
the other 5.
Because Planeswalkers are powerful, and we all know that. Like, I'm looking at that new Teferi, just like, this could be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, one other thing, I completely agree with, like you said, the card that is in standard that isn't a huge hit could be a huge hit down the line.
Yeah.
Like, I think of Stronic Resonator, or like you think of Chromatic Lantern.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that wasn't a huge, like, it could have been, let's say $5, but now it's like $8. You know, if you picked up even one of those in your Brawl deck, if they announce this in Return to Ravnica or something, like, think of what else you might have. You might have a Sacred Foundry sitting in a deck somewhere. Like, that's how I used to build my collection. Like, I'd play the stuff in standard and then evolve it into EDH, and we talked about that last week.
Well,
like,
and that's the other thing is like, you don't have to crack packs to get these cards. Just buy the singles.
Buy singles.
If you're looking at something to put into your Brawl deck, you're most likely wanting to use it for Commander at some point anyway. Like, if you look at like the deck techs that I've done so far, and you look at a lot of the cards that are in there, like, almost 90% of them are gonna be useful in the format that we're playing in. Like, you may have to use it in that deck just because you need to fill a spot, but in the long run, like,
it'll be in the Commander deck you
make
it into.
Think about, like, a good example is the Pterodactyl. I can't remember his name right now, but the Pterodactyl that essentially makes all of your opponent's creatures come into play tapped. Like, that is an amazing card that works great in the Brawl format, but translates perfectly into, like, a Commander like Pelifort theme. Like, there are just so many, like, examples of that I just don't get it. Like, the Skyship is another one. Like, deal 3 damage to a player or a Planeswalker or something like that. It's a good vehicle, and it always will be. So,
yeah, it'll be curious to see where it goes. I think one thing that, like, we're interested in is at least giving it a chance. You know.
Well, and that's what I think everybody should really approach this as. It's just like, it's not as like Cloak and Daggers everybody's looking at it. It's just like, it's not Wizards like,
those Commander players will buy packs now.
Fools will get you. Ha!
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I think this is targeted more towards standard players, to be honest. Like, I think that's the way this is actually meant to be perceived. And like a lot of people have said, the more the merrier, really. The more Commander players we can get from this, the better. Like, I would dare to venture that I would convert any standard player into a Commander player if I was given the chance. So, you know, it just depends.
And I think that's the curious thing. Like, I know when somebody comes into the shop, I would love to tell them about Commander first, always. But really, that isn't where somebody is most likely going to enjoy the game first. Unless they've got friends that are playing it, they're going to enjoy standard best. Like, just for availability and, like, ease of entry. You know, of course, if you think of the other formats, Vintage, completely off the list. Legacy, unless they're super rich. Like, Modern, same thing. Or they want to, like, punish themselves and really learn. Like, and then even Commander, there's some barriers there, but Standard's easy, and now we have a Standard Commander with just some options. It's very, I think it's a good time, like you said.
Yeah. Well, and Commander in a lot of ways is too complex for a new player too. Like I've tried it several times, you know, just getting a player right into Commander, and it works, but it's super tough. Like you said, they have to be 100% into learning all these interactions, because if you think about it, that's 25 years of mechanics, that's 25 years of keywords, that's 25 years. I mean, there's not always a reference. Like they have no idea what Death Touch is. Like Vigilance. What is Vigilance? Like, what does that mean? Like, you know, there's no that's a huge barrier in my opinion. Whereas like generally, if you're getting into something like this in a standard rotation, it's a much smaller card pool, which obviously, so the mechanics that you're going to have to interact with are like minuscule in comparison. You've got, you know, what,
Revolt,
17
energy,
like
Exert, you know,
like 17,000 cards compared to like 1,000 at most cards. Like that's a huge difference.
And another thing, and that's a good point you brought up, like right now we do have 6 sets, soon to be 7. Like we're gonna have 8 at the end of summer, like, and then it'll go back down to 5. Like that's very manageable. And I think the number one way to test this, even if you didn't play something back in Standard when you first started playing, like I bet if I asked you the mechanics of like Innistrad or Dark Ascension, you could be like, oh yeah, I remember like Undying or whatever, like Soul Bond. That's where you learn and you remember. Like I remember Cascade and like Domain and all this stuff, like just because, or Clash, you know, like that's just what I played. And I think that's a good way to, everybody knows that foundation, because that's when you were thrown in the pan or in the fire, I guess. Like you had to learn and say, okay, I got to watch out for Revolt, because I don't want to get fatal pushed, you know, like
exactly. Jeez, like that's not even something I think about most of the time, because once again we're out of it.
Right? Fatal push is a great card, but obviously in Standard it's like that's where that impact is, and those players will know it from there, you know.
So I don't know, it's interesting, that's for sure.
It's super cool. I think it's a good decision. I think given that article I think we linked last week, I think Wizards really believes in it too. Like they were talking about how big of an impact it made just around the office. Like, you know, like they said, this was optional, but they had such huge interest and turnout that this is like, okay, we've found something here. Let's refine it and then announce it. You know. Well,
and like from any, I guess, consumer of their product, you should be excited about this. Like, honestly, like you want this to succeed. Wizards has had quite a few flubs in the last couple of years, you know, Masters 25 being the most recent of them. They need to find a win somewhere. And us, like, kicking this down before it even starts is not necessarily a good thing for the game overall. Like, I'm not saying this needs to succeed for the game to continue on, but in my opinion, this is something that is easily tried and easily, you know, like, gotten into in comparison to, like, you can't get behind Masters 25, you know what I mean? But you can get behind this,
right?
You know, because there's so many variables that are all great. You know, it's just like next rotation, like Dominaria, who knows what, like say we go Dominaria, Return to Ravnica, like or Return to Ravnica, like they're saying, like think about that format as far as Brawl goes. Like that's going to be a multiplayer like haven. Or multicolor haven. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, who knows? We might have that perfect storm of, like I was saying with the Mana Rocks. We might have the Signets. We might have the blah. Think about how many legendaries we're going to have to build around in a format that actually supports multicolored decks. Like, that's going to be ridiculous. And especially for a new player that's trying to learn how to play Commander, going at it from the Brawl approach, that's going to be ridiculously fun. Like, I want to look at this from, like, a new player's perspective. Like, I want to go back in time and be like, I want to try this format out. You know, I don't get that because, you know, I've been playing Commander forever, but this is just a great opportunity.
I wonder if you could do a block constructed Brawl and be like, here's what Lorwyn Brawl looked like, or...
I mean, that's a great way to, like, even expand it further. Like,
Not that that's, like, that would, of course, that's not as translatable, I guess, as a standard Brawl, but...
I think block constructed is already a thing.
Yeah.
Even in Commander, like there's block constructed Commander decks. I built one for Kaladesh, actually. It's totally possible.
You mean you built a Brawl deck?
No, I actually built a regular Commander deck, but it could have been easier to build a Brawl deck.
Yeah, you take out 40 cards in your business.
Yeah, exactly, because it was tough. I was trying to build a energy-themed Commander deck that was essentially block constructed. Well, it was block constructed. The only thing I really struggled with was finding a Commander that would include all the colors. And these two sets, depending on if the Ravnica thing actually happens, have fixed that, in my opinion. Because you should have an opportunity to play whatever the hell you want.
Yep.
I mean, basically, like there may be a few misses, like there may not be all the shards or all the
wedges,
wedges, but there'll be at least a few of them, and that's all we really need.
Yeah, it's very very good point, I'd say.
Well, I mean, we've got a 5-color commander in this thing. Like you can play 5-color good stuff. Like that's who cares if it's Wizards thing?
Collect one of each of those lands, the cycle lands, and if you don't already have them, the buddy lands and stuff, and then you've got a 5-color deck that can rotate, and then you build like Progenitus or
well, and that just like solidifies that point that I made earlier even more. It's just like I'm picking up these lands. I wouldn't have necessarily bought them in the first place, but now I have them, and they go right into Commander, and it doesn't really matter. Like cycle lands are great.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, we're getting cards that we're probably going to use anyway. So I don't understand that complaint first of all. And like I said with the packs, you don't have to open packs. You never have to open packs. And, you know, the bottom line is you don't have to play the format if you don't like it. And that's the thing that keeps, like, getting in my head. It's just like, why are you even complaining about it? Like, just stay out of it.
Yeah, it's like, you know, everybody in this day and age gets an opinion just like us. Like, but I do agree. It's like, it's like not even worth the blood pressure. Just, okay, I'm not going to play that.
Well, and that kind of like spirals into like a point that's not even on the screen, but like we've talked about this in the last 2 episodes, like social media interaction with like companies like this, like how much are we actually hurting the game in the long run just by everybody, you know, having basically a shitstorm every time something happens, you know, it's just like, I'm going to throw a fit and throw my cards at the door just because somebody said something I didn't like because it was a new format that got introduced. It's just like, guys.
And then Wizards might abandon it. You know, like I've talked about this with people at the store, and then I think we mentioned it on the last episode. Imagine if they did a Brawl Commander release once a year.
Yeah.
$25. Like how cool would that be? Even if you didn't play Brawl and said, I'm just going to rip this apart and make a 100-card commander. Like it's only good.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
There's no negative.
If somebody instantly, like, it can be bad. Like, there can be a backlash. Wizards might say, ooh, this is going south. I'm sure they'd take everything with a grain of salt, just like you should with us. Like, this is how we play. You know, this is the vibe from my store, like, our store. You know, it's not the end-all, be-all, but it's just like, I think everybody should give it a chance, or even watch a game, watch our deck techs, you know.
Or even if you don't want to give it a chance, let somebody else have a chance.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm trying to get at. It's just like, really, guys. Ugh.
Who knows?
Like I said, I would have thought that the Commander community would be one of the most open about all of this and, you know, realize that it's not a bad thing. But anyway, now I'm, like, getting on my soapbox because I obviously have a very strong opinion about this and I don't want to bore you guys with all that. So, yeah, if you wish to quarrel with us in the comment section, do that for sure.
Yes, feel free.
I've definitely already had some pretty good conversations, even like private messaging, like just talking to people about like how they feel about this and stuff like that. And it's brought up good points on both sides, but honestly, at the end of the day, I just keep coming back to how could this be negative?
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah. So want to transition here?
Yeah. So next up, we've got some Dominaria spoilers. I know these have already a few of them have been out for the last couple of days, and we're just kind of getting to them. Mostly we've gotten artwork for some of these cards now. Like we've already spoiled most of the sagas and everything like that, but actually seeing the artwork now and how they're formatting the cards, like we went over the Black Enchantment
one. Yep.
The other day, and that artwork looks great, but I actually think that these other ones are better. Like they're doing like
agree. It's like a tapestry or
something.
Yeah,
exactly. And like if you look at like the high res images of these things, like the detail is ridiculous. I wish that was more, I guess, easily translated on the card, but I mean they only have so much room.
They'll make textless one someday.
Oh god, don't say that.
That would be cool, but obviously they've got to balance it because they are kind of wonky cards, but
they are weird. Like the way the mechanics that essentially how they work and everything, like I want to play with the card because I want to see how it actually works, because I keep looking at it and keep like reading it and saying, first I do this and then I do that, and it's just like that. And people are starting to bring up like Starfield of Nyx and stuff like that. Like, think about that cycle. Like, you end on Saga 3, it blows itself up. Starfield of Nyx triggers before any of those abilities happen, so it brings it back into play. You get to trigger it once, the first one again.
Jeez.
So it's just like an amazing cycle. So you start thinking about all these like applications that these cards can go into. Like, Enchantress decks are gonna love these.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like, it may not be on the head. Like, you may not look at it initially and be like, this is gonna be great for my deck, but the more and more I read them and the more and more I realize how powerful they can be, like, I'm just looking at my 4-color Enchantress deck and thinking, oh my god,
yeah,
I need a box of this set just so I can finish that deck out
cycles. Now. Yeah, definitely.
Because these are essentially spell enchantments, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because they do spells.
Or like a tracked Planeswalker, almost.
Yeah,
like it's cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. You'll see those here in a minute. We'll I think I put them towards the back of the slideshow here, but first, you can see here we have Danitha Capuchin Paragon, and maybe not the best choice as a commander. Interesting, 2 and a white for 2. First strike, vigilance, lifelink, and equipment spells cost you 1 less to cast. Pretty good. I could see her being in a number of equipment themed decks. I think even we mentioned Brawl, like, I don't know how many good equipments and auras and stuff there are in standard, but like there are certainly some that come to mind. Like,
well, or you look at it from the perspective of like, this fits right into the SRAM Brawl deck.
Oh yeah,
like, just automatically.
Yeah,
like I don't know. We're getting some obviously ridiculous busted equipment so far in Dominaria, and that's where I think this will more or less shine because of the stuff that we're getting there. But there are some decent ones that we have so far. A lot of them flip over, which maybe isn't the best thing for her, but overall, really, really cool. I mean, that is keyword soup right there.
Yeah.
First strike, vigilance, lifelink, like that's
for 3.
That's enough for me to play it.
You think she'd be a 2/1 or a 1/2 or something at that point? Like, yeah, that's really good.
So I could see her being a 1v1 commander as well. Like, I would try her. I don't know if she beats Thalia, and that's the thing that you have to look at, is just like, does this beat like one of the staples that's already established? Right. No, but
in this color with the archetype of that, yeah, I think you're right. Maybe not, but cool art. Art's great. You want?
Oh god, the artwork on this card,
yeah,
like, it gets me every time. Like, they have the full images of these without like the borders or anything like that. It just looks so beautiful. Like, the rotating Starfield on the back, essentially like that whole, like, you put a camera and you
time lapse and stuff, yeah,
like,
or long exposure rather.
And the colors on this card just look beautiful. Like, Teferi Timebender. So we've got a 4 colors, white, blue, legendary Planeswalker, of course, Teferi, 5 loyalty starting, which is ridiculous for 6, especially with what this does. +2, untap up to 1 target artifact or creature, so already has a way to defend itself. -3, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards, so essentially like a Mull Drifter with life gain. Cloud Blazer, I guess, is a better way to put that. -9, take an extra turn after this one. So what a lot of people are already saying is that this automatically goes infinite with a lot of things. So you can put something like this in, like, say, Brago, for example, and you just keep blinking it. And you just keep, like, I don't know, using the Chain Veil, and you keep just putting those loyalty counters on, and then you just keep taking them off, -9. I mean, there's a few different synergies that they've talked about. I can't remember exactly what they are, but think about this with Doubling Season. Like, that's an instant take an extra turn after this just by playing this card. So,
and again, it's in Bant. Like, in that case, if you're running green, like that, and Planeswalkers needed any help.
So I guess, all you'd need is playing Bant, Brago, Doubling Season, and you've got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's good. I think he's cool. This, again, is in the Planeswalker deck, like, so everybody can get a hold of him. I think the biggest thing kind of fighting against him is the mana cost. Like, I don't know if it'd be fair to give him a 4 loyalty or something and then make him a 5 cost. I think that's the number one thing that are kind of hurting these. Obviously, they all can't be amazing.
Well, and they make them intentionally,
right. They're introductory.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, this to me feels more powerful than the ones that have come before it.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like they were like, okay, maybe we're making them a little too
weak or something.
Yeah, and they buffed the power on this one. I like this card as a commander card already. Like, I like it.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, untapping one target artifact or creature. That I like. That's the first thing I read, obviously. But like, I think what deck? Oh, it's Azorius. It could go into your room. Oh, it's got an artifact thing. Like perfect. And like you said, the art is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would probably change is probably instead of like a -3, making it like -2 or something like that, and then maybe making it cost one less, and then I think it would just be like a regular Planeswalker.
Right. And that's the first thing I thought of too, looking at the loyalty, is like you can only do that once, the -2 draw 2 or gain 2 draw 2, and that makes sense because they want you to kind of work back and forth or just get to the ultimate and like do the -9 or something. But
it's sweet. Just, if you think about it, it's like I've paid 5 mana to draw 2 cards and gain 2 life before.
Yeah.
Cloud Blazer is a perfect example of that. I've done it before, so why wouldn't I do it here?
Yeah.
Especially because the Planeswalker sticks around after that, and it either A, absorbs a whole lot of damage for you, or B, sticks around till the next turn where you can untap something and get a little bit more synergy and value.
And then maybe do it again.
Yeah, so no bad.
It's good. Next, I think we've got Chandra, Bold Pyromancer. For 4 and 2 red, you get a 5 loyalty. For +1, you can add 2 mana and deals 2 damage to target player, so not bad. For -3, Chandra, Bold Pyromancer deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. And then for -7, Chandra, Bold Pyromancer deals 10 damage to target player and each creature and planeswalker they control. So, not bad. I think the first thing, again, the +1 is pretty solid.
Yeah, and the +1's probably the best ability on this entire card. Obviously, when you've got like Chandra, Torch of Defiance running around, this just doesn't even compare. But once again, if you look at this from like either Commander or Brawl, it's actually a pretty decent card. Like, would I run this as my Commander necessarily? And a Brawl format, not really. I mean, it's not that great. But would I include it? Yeah. Just for the up 2 on mana, like just keep +1ing her. I don't even necessarily care about the damage. Like, that's a great addition there. But yes. I like that. I wish there was a wheel effect on this card. That's the one thing I kind of wish. Like, it was like the other Chandra from Zendikar. Like, that card's stupid.
They do seem to go in that direction. Either add some mana equal to mountains, or like just add a couple here and use it to cast a spell or something. Or like you said, draw, discard, draw and deal, something like that. I think you're right. I think she's a little, like, definitely not as good as Teferi, definitely not as good as some other Chandras or other commander choices and stuff. That ultimate's pretty attainable if you think about it.
Yeah.
2 turns of adding mana to either defend her or something, and then all of a sudden you're blasting 10 for your opponent, their board, and their planeswalkers. Like,
target player is huge.
Yeah. That's pretty good. 3 turns later, so turn 9 if you get there. Like, I think that's very doable. So pretty sweet.
Well, and like we were saying, you just this continually is just a threat. So once again, it's either absorbing damage or it's getting there. So like, there's no downside.
No.
6 is a little rough, but
same thing. I mean, this is the type of card where you say, I'm gonna run my Ruby Medallion, or I'm gonna run the Ronus's Monument, not Ronus. Hazaret's Monument, only as creatures, right? Yeah. So, but any sort of like familiar like that, like if this planeswalker costs 5, or say you like Koth and then into this or something, like that's a pretty good turn,
Yeah.
So definitely cool.
Yeah.
I think that will bring us to some other of our legendaries. We have Nyambi, Faithful Healer, a 1 and Azorius for a 2/2 human cleric. When Nyambi, Faithful Healer, enters the battlefield, you may search your library or graveyard, for a card named Teferi, Timebender, so the previous Teferi. These come in those Planeswalkers decks. Reveal it, put it in your hand, if you search your library, shuffle. So maybe not as useful as a commander player, but
it's a very interesting way to, because they've always included these cards that essentially search for the planeswalker that's in the deck, which is great, by the way.
Yeah,
like that's a great way to like just make that product like work.
Yeah.
But having a legendary creature, this is the first time they've ever done this, that's specific to finding the planeswalker from the deck. Like, that's pretty interesting. I wish, and this card honestly could have said this, that it just said Teferi card.
Yeah.
That would be a totally different story with this card, because now you start looking at it as like a multiplayer commander application where it's just like every time they print a Teferi card, now I can do Teferi Tribal.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, but I think an interesting goal. I always love those little bits of like, I'm gonna try this because it's crazy, you know, and that could be one of those things where you could try it because it's crazy.
And you think of, I think the last example of that would be this whole Gideon tribal thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh my god, you could do this? Like, I need to do this. Like,
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It is, that's the first thing I reread. And they all do say search for this exact name, Planeswalker, in the past. But this one, of course, does the same thing, and it would have been much more powerful if you could get the pack mythic Teferi or something like.
Yeah, and what's the threat with this? Finding the Planeswalker that's in Dominaria? Like, that's not really that big of a deal. Like,
no.
I don't think that necessarily would increase the price of this card at all either. Like, it's just going to be what it is. Like, that would have never been like a standard deck. It's just like Teferi find.
Yeah.
That's all this does. And yeah, tutors are powerful and whatever, but I don't know if it's that useful. So I don't know.
It is. Even if they didn't say just find a Teferi Planeswalker, I wish there was an application beyond that. Like maybe it says, like you give it an Archaeomancer or something, return a artifact or a sorcery or instant or something like.
Yeah, because I mean this is just a trash card. As where it stands because it's not useful in anything. Like.
No. Except for playing in the Planeswalker deck, or if you choose this in Standard for whatever reason, which I don't think anybody would. Like, it is kind of a shame.
Yeah, I mean it's such a cool like. Because supposedly, lore-wise, this is supposed to be Teferi's daughter, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like, that makes it a really cool character to kind of follow and everything. And then all of a sudden you get this card that's just like, okay.
Yep.
My thought is that they're going to actually have, we just haven't seen it yet. This
Another
card is going to be,
something.
Something else that's already in the Dominaria block.
Yeah.
And we'll get something that redeems her and it'll be really cool. But
yeah, I could see this being just like an Odric. Perfect example. He comes back. Thalia comes back. Like they could definitely print an Eonbi later or something. Like it's cool, but a little. It's like man, once you read it.
Nuts.
But it's definitely a Planeswalker product there. It's cool. Another commander.
Oh man, Zahid Dingeon of the Lamp. So this is a 4 colors, 2 blue, legendary creature Dingeon. Is that how you say that?
I think it's Jin.
Jin, sorry. Anyway, 5/6. You may pay 3 colors and a blue and tap an untapped artifact you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Has flying as well. So the artwork is what always gets me on this card because it looks so ridiculous. And like with Jins, like you've got like these, the ones that I think of are all super old. So like you've got a specific like art style that was going on there, and now we're getting something that's like more modern, and the artwork's ridiculous.
It looks like something out of Kaladesh, like
it really does, with all the swoopy lines and everything like that.
Filigree and the blue glow of like an aethery type thing.
Yeah.
I love the flavor as far as you kind of rub the lamp and he shows up. Like that's super cool. Let me see. I do as I please, little mortal. Do go on about your wishes, though they amuse. They amuse me to no end. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, yeah.
Commander choice, no. It's not a very good card overall. Like 5/6 flyers for 4. Like that's a pretty good rate, but at the same time, this card needed to do something else to really be like a viable legendary creature. If it would have had a way to, I don't know, like you were saying, if it would have had like an Archaeomancer like ability on top of all this, I think maybe it would have worked, in some kind of like corner cases or even in some decks. But as it is, like, I don't see this being played really anywhere.
Even not necessarily as an add-in. Like,
I mean, there's the 6-drop spot in Commander is just like so like. There's so many cards that you can add into there, and then adding something like this is just like a bad idea.
Yeah, you think, how crazy would that be if besides just like this, you could almost make it a Ring of 3 Wishes or something? That would be nuts. Like people would go crazy for that if you had this sort of ability. I mean, that'd be a huge wall of text. But
what this really what this really needed to have was like Aetherling abilities.
Yeah.
Like that would have pushed this card over the edge. Like if it would have had like even like 2 of those abilities on top of all of it, or all of what it already does. I would actually care less about the mana reduction and then having those abilities on top of like a flyer and 5/6. Like I would have preferred that.
I think of like King Makar. That was a tangible. Everybody knows about Midas. Hopefully, everybody knows about genies. Like how cool would that be? Like you said, if you could, like, incorporate that sort of feeling. I was entranced by that card, King Makar, when they printed him, because it's like, oh my god, like gold tokens, oh my god. But like you said, imagine if you could make a wish and then, like you said, flip a power and toughness, or make him +1 or unblockable or something. Like, I think that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
But
see, like if I would have seen this card, I think we did see it. Like I would have pegged this as an uncommon for sure, not a rare.
Yeah, I could see that, just being a 5/6 flyer that you can reduce.
And then it would have kind of made it would have fit into its own little category. Then it could have been like a peasant commander for all time.
Yeah,
like that would have been a decent peasant commander. It's a good like commander damage creature at that point. I mean, you've got like what,
evasion in a 5. Like that's enough to finish somebody off.
4 turns to kill somebody with commander damage in that format.
Yeah,
which is still kind of rough, but if you buff it a little bit, put an equipment on it, all of a sudden it turns into 3 turns like right away. So that's not so bad. Yeah, that's interesting.
Cool print. I think this guy is the draft day promo or something.
Yeah.
Maybe Wizards knows something we don't know.
I'd be surprised.
So now we're going to break into our sagas. And again, I think Steve said these have been out. A few of them have been out for a number of days here, but we just wanted to more show the art.
Yeah, we're not necessarily going to talk about the abilities. Like, we've already gone over these cards. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are not so great. Like, this card's It definitely makes sense this is uncommon. Like, it's very blah. The artwork's pretty cool, though. I mean, it reminds me of, like, Lord of the Rings for some reason. Like, the ram where they get into Minas Tirith, I think that is. It's been so long. But yeah, it reminds me of that, and like it's just an interesting, like, I don't know that much about lore, especially Dominaria like era. Chris would be the one to tell us all about that. But I'm sure there's a million different references to things that have gone on in the past in here, which is great.
Yeah, definitely cool artwork. I think that's the coolest part of these is like, a different frame, a different, like we said, it's almost like a planeswalker, an enchantment with you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this.
Well, and the tapestry approach is just amazing.
It's really cool.
I usually am like, formatting on these cards is terrible, but I actually really like these. Yeah. Like, it's funny how you get like a comparison to like the invocations from Amonkhet, and that terrible decision that they made with those frames, and then you look at something like this, which is radically different. And it works. Like. So there's obviously somebody there that knows good design.
Yeah, I'd say they did a great job. And even you think,
well, and I love the countdown too. Like, that's perfect.
I was gonna say, as far as the, like, what's a recent card that could have thrown a new player off, like those like never to return.
Oh yeah.
Or like fuse cards from Dragon's Maze, or even earlier than that. Like those were kind of wonky, if you ask me. And then now this one, they look sweet.
Like. The never to return cycle made a lot of sense to me because it's really just turning the card and then putting it in your graveyard,
and then
like that's pretty easy for me to grasp. The fuse cards were a little bit tricky sometimes. It's just like, wait, what?
But this looks slick, super neat. Our next one here, Triumph of Gerard.
Another great choice for uncommon because this should not have ever been a rare.
Another just decent art,
Yeah, it's not necessarily like the tapestry approach we were talking about earlier, but it's still a callback to the past. Like, this is Gerard, obviously depicted as a statue at this point, because from what I understand, he's probably definitely dead. Because, I mean, this has been whatever amount of years ago, like thousands probably. Tell us if we're wrong on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it beats me. I don't know.
Somebody said that he could be fighting Merit Liege, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would say more of like a Phyrexian battle, like, because that does make sense. Because that was a huge part of his whole storyline, from what I understand. Like I said, I'm not an expert on any of this. So, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Now this artwork.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
This kind of gets more to that tapestry look, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry.
I was going to say, I think we were kind of, this is kind of cool. Like, it has a home in certain commander decks. And then I think it has a nice balancing of destroy everything and then reset a little bit at a time for 2 turns,
Well, and there's so many, like, in my opinion, applications for this card as far as, like, what we were just talking about with the Starfield of Nyx. Like, imagine this card with Starfield of Nyx.
And really quick, because I'm not familiar, that returns an artifact? Or
returns an enchantment
at end of turn, or?
Beginning of your upkeep, I believe.
Okay, so these trigger on your draw, right?
Yeah.
So it would return it, but it wouldn't have been gone yet.
What do you mean?
Because you would do beginning of upkeep, nothing is gone. Well, unless you do it a later turn. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
so essentially once the third saga happens,
it's now in your graveyard.
Goes to your graveyard at the beginning of your next upkeep. It comes back and then triggers on your draw step.
Yep.
So it's like it's an interesting cycle that somebody had brought up, and it's just like, wow, that's actually pretty powerful.
God, that would suck. Yeah, you're right, because it would get you 4 lands after it did it the first time. Go to graveyard, destroy all lands, then you draw on your draw step and return 2 lands. Like, boy. Yeah.
So if you're building around that, and you've got like something that exiles all of your opponent's graveyards,
yeah,
like you don't even necessarily need to return this thing at that point. But there's some, like I said, there's some interesting applications that this card could apply to. And a lot of people brought up that, you know, an effect like this hasn't been in standard in how many years? Like destroying lands is not something they usually bring up. Like it's just like,
especially at 6. Like,
oh yeah.
So what I'm anticipating, okay, hear me out.
Okay.
That landfall elk that gains you life, and then Zozu, so that you get your land back and gain some life, and then lose some life, but everybody else is just taking damage.
Yeah.
I'm calling it here.
Just play a Naya land ram, or what am I trying to say? Landfall. There we go.
Yeah.
Naya landfall with like Omnath and like a whole bunch of other ridiculous targets, because even like the return 2 lands with an Omnath, like that's great.
Yeah.
Like you get 2 tokens, then you can hit somebody for X amount of damage when they die, and like you just continue the cycle. Then you put in something like Titania, which says every time a forest goes to the graveyard, like you get a token or something like that. Like all of a sudden you're just doing this, and it's just like, guys, no,
Yeah. Yeah, this one will be cool. And again, a good rare. You'd mentioned this earlier. Now we have confirmed rarities on these, whereas before they were kind of guesses. Yeah. So yeah, I love that art. And I guess these are the Thran at the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I what I really like is like the like gold leafy kind of thing that's going on. Like I almost want that to be like the foil part of this card, because I think that would be ridiculous.
Just like nothing else or something.
And once again with that countdown bar, like it's just perfect because it's easy to understand.
Yep. I bet these will look sharp.
Oh yeah.
In foil.
Oh gosh. This is probably one of the favorites of pretty much everybody that's looked at it so far. Like creating tokens has always been good, and for 3, it's actually ridiculous, especially because if you think about it, over 2 turns you get 4 power for 3 mana. And then all of a sudden you go to the last ability and then turn something into all of your somethings into a monster. So say you do that Knight's Tribal thing that we were talking about. Going into a whole different direction, you take that into like a brawl perspective. Like this card is stupid.
Yeah.
Especially with your commander. Like, oh my gosh, you're making tokens with your commander, you're making tokens with this. And say you have a way to recur it, it's just like, oh my gosh, there's the dwarf that's in the Brawl format, the one that you sacrifice for 1 and you can return enchantment from your graveyard to your hand, enchantment or artifact. And it's just like, I'll take that, please.
Yeah, this is another one that will look amazing in foil too, like the stained glass look. Like, dude. And was this a mythic when we first saw it?
I think it was a rare.
Okay.
It makes sense that it's a mythic to me. Like this and limited is stupid. Like as we already talked about. This is going to be one of this, I'm calling it here, is going to be one of the chase ones. Like, people are going to want this card. People are going to be building Night Tribal.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it doesn't actually work, this card's still good. Yep. Like, regardless. Like, it's just powerful. And, yeah, the stained glass. Like, the foil of this card is going to look gorgeous.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
It's one of the only ones that I wish, like, I could just get rid of the text and just know what it does and then just have that. Yeah.
Too cool.
Yeah.
The first eruption. This one kind of feels tapestry-y to me as well. Kind of the more you look, like you see these dragons up there. It almost reminds me of Terminate too, like the old school like plane shift one or whatever. But
well, and this looks like something that would be like you said, hanging in like a duke's house or something like that. It's just like, and if you look at the high res, like I think the artist even went through the trouble of like putting like the threads and stuff like to make it look like, you know, something that would be hanging on a wall.
Yeah, super sweet. Time of Ice, which kind of makes sense for like the Ice Age, I guess, you know, and
it's got Darien and Lavissa on it. Like, wow. And a lot of people are saying the dude that's got the sword through it is the Raven Man, or Limdal is the other speculation on that as well. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, that's the first thing I'm like, oh my god, is that Darien? Like, you know, it would make perfect sense.
Yeah, the artwork's a little bit different on him. It doesn't initially read as Darien to me. I had to hear that in order for it to make sense. Lavissa, on the other hand, looks like Lavissa. So
what's the connection there?
Once again, I'm not too familiar with the storyline there. I'm guessing they were, because obviously they were both around during like the Cold Snap era. So I mean, they're from the same set, aren't they?
Well, Darian's from Cold Snap, and then I think Lavissa's from Cold Snap as well.
So maybe they were like two warring parties, or maybe they're even allies. I don't know. Once again, enlighten us in the comments, because
we had a lot of comments on that our big video about Dominaria spoilers. Like, let us know. I mean,
people obviously know about this lore. Like, if you started playing the game way back when it first came out and you lived through all this, like, you're gonna know
all of it,
a crap ton. Like, Merit Liege tokens on the tentacles at the bottom there, like that. That makes me think there'll be a Merit Liege somewhere in here, which would be so freaking cool.
Isn't there a blue saga that's like the Wrath of Merit Liege or something?
I don't know. Maybe.
I thought there was. I thought the name was mentioned somewhere, but kind of in the historical way of, this is the story or something.
Okay.
We'll check, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, like I would love to see that. Oh, man.
Just super, super cool, super stylized. Looks like right out of a tome,
Once again, I wish I could just have this full art.
You can make it full art, Steve.
No.
Mirari Conjecture, kind of a little different, I think.
It's more modern.
Yeah.
It's mappy, which, obviously gets me going because I love maps, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think this one did match its rarity when it was initially spoiled, so. Well,
and function-wise, this card's ridiculous. Like, I want to apply it to so many different decks. It's not even funny. Like, my mono blue deck is going to love this thing. Because that's the one thing it really, really likes is those Archaeomancer effects. And this is just another addition to that, It's a little bit limiting on, like, if somebody knows you have a good, like, sorcery in your graveyard and you're only on the instant speed, side of this, they have a chance to remove it before you get that sorcery back, but that's when you're just a little bit coy about what you're doing. You're just like, I'm just going to put this out here. I'm just going to get this counterspell
Go
back.
for the trigger, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to counter the thing that you're going to try and get rid of my Sundering with or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
definitely cool. And that's it for the new spoilers and art and stuff, but yeah, what do you think, Steve?
I mean, it's looking really cool. Like I said, the more and more I see the weird like top on these legendary creatures, the more I don't dislike it, I guess. I still don't necessarily know about for multicolored creatures because I think it looks really sharp on monocolored creatures. But like even looking at the Sunspear card still, I'm just like, maybe this should have just been gold.
I wonder if it's the art. Like that looks really good to me.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that we're gonna have to get used to, or I guess I'm gonna have to get used to. Some people Steve. Just don't have a problem with it. It's just like, whatever, Steve. It doesn't matter.
So,
like, to me, okay, going on a soapbox here again. Like, to me, it feels very like it belongs in this set kind of thing compared to this is the legendary marker. Does that make any sense? Like,
yeah, I can see that.
Like, I almost feel like they'll be different for each set or something like that. That would make a little bit more sense. But I don't know if they want to spend that much time like doing design, which I wouldn't want to. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I guess it could just be something that I have to get over.
Time will tell.
Exactly. So anyway, would you say we've talked about it?
I think so. Yeah, if there's anything you want to add, definitely add it in the comments. It's always fun to talk and learn and stuff. Like, there's a lot. It feels like I would definitely consider myself a newbie as far as all of this. Like, this is way before I played and way before you played, but I mean, there's a reason they're returning here, and they've got all these cool characters and sagas and stories, and there's just let us know.
Well, and speaking of that, just as like a last little ending note, if you haven't seen it's like the Magic official YouTube channel or something like that, they put out an interview with Mark Rosewater and why can't I think of his name? Guy that made the game.
Richard Garfield.
Jeez, I don't know why I was blanking there. But they
lost some cred, I think, Steve.
I know his name. I just couldn't think of it. Anyway, they put out an interview with those guys, and it was actually pretty interesting. Like, there's some stuff that they brought up, points and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth a watch. I would, give it some time.
Cool.
Anyway, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.